Cloud computing model describes how cloud services are delivered to an end user, and in this video I am going to explain you the different model or different offerings provided by this cloud provider. So without wasting any further time, let's get started. Typically, this cloud computing model is categorized in three different categories, and they are IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, and abbreviated as Infra as a Service, Platform as a Service, and Software as a Service. Let's try to understand them one by one with an example. Let's suppose I want to create an email sending application, and this application is capable of sending an email. As a prerequisite, an API project should be created. This could be any backend API, either .NET Core or Java or maybe Python. Then this app should be capable of sending an email using an SMTP protocol. And finally, we have to persist the record somewhere in the database, let's say in SQL Server. Now, based on these three requirements, let's assume how we can categorize the three models, which is my ES, PaaS, and SaaS. So when you talk about ES, it is Infra as a Service. AS stands for Infra as a Service, and in this model, the infrastructure is managed by the customer only. As a cloud provider, the cloud will provide you the set of resources, and as a customer, we have to manage that. So, for example, for creating an API, we need a backend language, let's say .NET Core. Now, once my API is created, I have to host this API. And for hosting this API, first of all, I need a virtual machine. So I will provision a virtual machine from my cloud provider, whether you are using Azure, GCP, or AWS, you will be provisioning a virtual machine from them. Then on that virtual machine, you have to install an IaaS or a web server to deploy this application. Also, as per my requirement, I have to persist the data in my database. So I also have to install a SQL Server database on my that virtual machine. Based on that, I would be able to make it work. Then I also have to maintain the SSL configuration on that particular server, and I also have to maintain the different security mechanism like patching of a server, providing an antivirus, and so on. Now you have noticed that in this entire ecosystem, cloud as a provider, they have given you all the hardware resources. They have provided you a virtual machine, most probably of Windows, and then you as a individual is supposed to set up these bits. And there will be some effort required to set up these things like IaaS, SQL Server, SSL, and so on. And effort will be required also to maintain networking, to provide subnet, to provide patching of that machine. Maybe you need to decide what kind of configuration you want for this particular stuff. Based on all these technologies, based on all these conventions, you have noticed that cloud as a provider is providing you an infrastructure, but on top of that, you are managing multiple things, or I should say, you are managing all the bit. And this model is called as infra as a service, where cloud provider provides you the infrastructure, but you as an developer, as an individual, you are supposed to manage those infrastructure. This model is best if you want a full control on the infra side. If you want to govern how much VM you want to provision, how much the RAM should be there, what should be the processing power of that machine. If you want to govern all the things, then infra as a service is one of the best choice. Then you can opt from a cloud service provider. Now, the next mechanism, the next thing that cloud provides us as a software as a service, which is as the platform as a service, which is also called as PaaS. So it is abbreviated as platform as a service. And let's say the same example, what we can do as a platform as a service. Now my app is still there. My requirement is still same that I need to create an application that could be capable of sending an email. But in this infra part, I am not going to provision a VM or a virtual machine. Or in simple terms, this VM, the one that I was managing in a part of my infra as a service, I will not have any control on the PaaS side. We can say that in platform as a service, what I have to do is I have to deploy my application, and for that particular purpose, this cloud provider, they will provide me an infrastructure. So we can say that we will be going to use an app service, which is an offering from an Azure ecosystem, but definitely for AWS and for GCP, the offering will be different, their name will be different. But the concept is that you don't have to provision an VM for it. Rather, Platform as a service will provide you a resources, certain section in the existing virtual machine, and you as an individual are supposed to deploy that application in that app service. This app service, you can think of a way that a virtual machine is already provisioned, and that virtual machine already consists of an IaaS. In this app service, you will be allowed to create a virtual directory in that IaaS so that you will be able to deploy your application over there. Also, in this platform as a service, there will be a concept of shared quota where multiple apps are deployed on the same virtual machine. So, in this scenario, what will happen is that you as an individual will not have a full control on that virtual machine where your app is deployed. Rather, you will be only assigned a shared quota. So, out of that, how many applications that are deployed on that virtual machine will use that processing power. There might be some delay, there might be some delay in the responses, but you have to bear with that. And if you're not liking it, then you have to ask to increase the shared quota depending on the price that you are paying. So in platform as a service, I am not supposed to install a SQL server. I'm not supposed to even install or even manage about the patching or an antivirus. Normally, as a part of your infrastructure maintenance, you have to install the antiviruses, you have to keep your operating system up to date. But in case of platform as a service, you are not supposed to do anything. Everything will be taken care by these cloud provider, and all you have to do is just to pay them and they'll take care of everything. Okay. So now you have noticed that in the infra as a service, you although you get a full control, but this full control also comes with certain responsibility. And you need to hire someone, maybe from an infra side, from a DevOps side, to patch your servers, to install an antivirus, to maintain all these things. But whereas if you talk about a platform as a service, you are not supposed to do anything. All the heavy lifting will be done by these cloud providers, and you as an individual will be only allowed to use their services. Likewise, in ES, where I was supposed to install a SQL server as well as a part of my infrastructure, in platform as a service, I am not supposed to install a SQL server on my particular machine. Rather, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use another PaaS service or another PaaS offering by cloud, and that is termed as Azure SQL. This Azure SQL is similarly to a normal SQL server, but a difference that you are not supposed to maintain any kind of installation. You're not supposed to maintain any kind of quota. All you have to do is just to provision an Azure SQL instance, pay Microsoft or any cloud provider based on the capacity, the quota that you are getting from them, and then you are sorted. So this platform as a service will simply give you a less headache. In this particular approach, there is no requirement of hiring a dedicated person, a dedicated resource to manage your infrastructure. And that's the beauty of a platform as a service. These days, multiple applications are deployed as a platform as a service where they require a less headache and more on the delivery side. Now, the third offering which cloud provide is software as a service, where you don't even need to maintain anything. So, in SaaS products, or I should say, a software as a service, this will give you a less control, or I should say, a no control on the application, and you will only get a final product. So assuming that my requirement is still same and I want to send an email from my application, in that case, I'm not going to create any API. I'm not going to create any database. Rather, I'm going to use any fine product provided by these providers, and one of them is SendGrid. So SendGrid is actually able to send an email, and it performs everything. It performs the logging part, it performs the retry part, and again I have to provide some kind of shared quota, and based on that, I will be able to send an email. All I have to do is to just to take a services and pay it to cloud provider. So in software as a service, you generally don't maintain anything. You simply start using these websites, these applications, and pay them, and then you are good to go. There are a couple of applications that we normally use on a daily basis as a software as a service, and we're not even noticing it. For example, Google Drive. In this Google Drive, we are simply using this to store our documents, to store our images and photos, and you are not even bothered about where they are stored, whether they are stored in a local drive or they are stored in somewhere. That is the part of a Google Drive, and all we are doing is we are paying something to them as on a monthly basis. Another example of software as a service is Salesforce. So in this one, this cloud provider manages everything like infra, platform, and application, and you simply access the software through a browser or an application. And there is no installation required. It can be accessible on anywhere, and it is based on a subscription-based model where you have to pay a fixed amount depending upon your uses. Email services, Office tools, Salesforce API, Google Drop, customer relationship management software, CRMs. The list is quite long. So this is a simple comparison between the three different offerings from a cloud provider, and they are ES, PaaS, and SaaS. Up to this point, you must have noticed that ES or the infra as a service will give you a full control on the infra side, but it comes with some kind of headache as well. Now, if you're working with an application which provides an utmost security and you are not even willing to give your infra to someone else, maybe a banking application, maybe an application which requires a full security, or you have a dedicated team to manage those things, then go with ES approach, where you can simply put these, or you can simply buy these resources from cloud provider, and then you will manage them by yourself. Platform as a services, you will be simply asking a fixed quota, although the app management, the logic will be still taken care by development team is still responsible to write a logic to send an email, but for deployment part you will be going to deploy it into app service rather than in VM or an IaaS. And for a SQL server part, you will be going to use an Azure SQL rather than installing a SQL on that particular machine. And finally, if you don't want any headache, if you don't have a development team, simply go with a SaaS product where you will be simply there to send, if you will be simply paying a cost to the SendGrid API to send an email. I hope this example makes you clear about the differences in different offering of a cloud computing. If you're liking my content, then please hit the like button. Please subscribe to my channel. This will keep me motivated to record or to generate a new content for you every day. Thank you.